my Diane.
Hello and welcome to Long Live Hooky Street, the podcast where we rewatch and discuss every episode of Britain's most beloved TV comedy, Only Fools and Horses. I'm Heather and I'm joined from Denver, Colorado by my co-host and sister Jenny. Say hello, dude.
Hello.
Today we're discussing Series 4, Episode 5, Sleeping Dogs Lie. So grab a bottle of Bob Martins and let's get started.
This episode aired on the BBC at 8 p.m. on Thursday, March 21st, 1985. As before, following Top of the Pops, a record-breaking 18.7 million viewers tuned in this week.
Wow.
We still have You Spin Me Round Like a Record by Dead or Alive as the UK #1 song this week, and All of Me, starring Steve Martin, was in the #1 spot at the UK box office. So a few little interesting episode facts. This episode marks the first on-screen appearance of Marlene, Boycie's wife, played by Sue Holderness. Ray Butt and director Susan Belbin had seen Sue Holderness on an ITV sketch show called End of Part 1 when they approached her for the part. At first they thought she might be too posh, but they soon saw that she was perfect for the part and she could do any accent. Sue Holderness was actually 3 months pregnant at the time of shooting. She thought it'd just be a jolly morning's work and she didn't think much about it until she got a call from John Sullivan saying that he would love to have Marlene come back for more. Now, I think I understood this correctly. It sounds like Sue had to buy her own costume and style her own hair for the role. I'm not sure how normal this is. More about Sue's first scenes in the episode breakdown. This episode also gives us the first appearance of Boycie's house on the King's Avenue. Although I could not find a reference to where this was filmed. I know some people know where it's filmed because I've seen people visit the location. It does look like the same house that we see in Sky's the Limit, so I probably just need to do more research on where this is. Buster Merrifield said that it was the day after this episode aired that he was first recognised in the street. Someone yelled out, "Albert, here boy, here boy." So he said it was lovely and it made him laugh. Nick Lyndhurst said that he had a lucky escape during filming where the dog fell on top of him. It mentions a scene where Rodney is carrying the dog and was supposed to fall over, and I don't remember that from the episode, so perhaps it was a cut scene. And as usual, I'll have more trivia to scatter throughout the episode, but shall we move on to our episode rankings?
Yes, let's do it. So our regular listeners will know by now that each week we reveal and compare our rankings for the episode. And prior to recording the entire podcast, we independently ranked all 64 episodes. So if you didn't know any of that, then you're probably not yet one of our regular punters. And we would love for you to subscribe to the podcast and give us a like and share our videos. That would be really helpful. And comment, of course. We like to read all your comments. So we release a new episode every Saturday. So make sure you tune in every Saturday.
Right, yeah. And honestly, like Heather said, we really love reading the comments. It's been really fun. We are recording quite a little bit ahead, so if we're not acknowledging your comments in the episodes as they come along, that's probably why. But we do really love reading all the comments.
And we'll try to reply to some of the comments in the series overview when we get to that as well. We're doing an overview episode for every series, so we'll talk about some of the comments that we maybe haven't had a chance to address in that episode too. Okay, dude, so what did you rank this episode out of 64?
Okay, so my ranking for this one is number 30.
Ah.
Okay, so starting this week, we're going to try something new. So whoever does the first ranking, and we're going to try and remember to switch it every week, the other person's going to guess whether the other's ranking is higher or lower. So
Okay.
I'm going to guess, so my ranking was 30. I'm going to guess, although you did give it away a little bit with your reaction, I'm guessing yours is lower.
Okay, I'll know not to react next time you say your ranking. Do you want to do your explanation first then, or do you want to do the rankings first then discuss?
Yeah, I don't know. It's not very easy to explain why something's in a position that it's in. But the main reason that I chose a higher ranking for this one is because I watched this episode to death when I was a kid. And I really like it probably because there's a dog in it. Although now, as I'm older, I'm like, oh, I feel bad. Like, it's not a very nice storyline for the dog. But I think as a kid, I just loved episodes that had animals and pets and stuff in them. Also loves to see Marlene for the first time. So it's a memorable episode for me. Yeah, that's the main reason. I just know I watched this episode a lot when I was younger. I can definitely see some criticisms for it, along with what other people have said online about its weaknesses. I see them all, but I still ended up with it in a higher spot.
Okay.
So what's your ranking?
Okay, so my ranking for this episode is 45.
Oh, that's so much lower than I expected it to be.
Yeah.
But at least I knew it was lower.
Yes, you got that right. Well done, dude.
Well, explain your reason.
Okay, so the reason for me that I put this episode a bit lower is because it's a punchline episode, which I've mentioned before about other ones, in that it's all kind of leading to a single joke, if you like. That I mean, the setup is obviously a little bit more interesting than maybe some of the other ones that we have the punchline in. But I think that, yeah, that's the reason it's maybe not as memorable for me. Of course, I like the dog. But yeah, as you say, it's not nice what happens to the dog, that he gets sick, even though it's all fake. I hope it's fake. But yeah, it's obviously, that being said, Marlene's introduction is great. I think the way they introduce the character is fantastic, and she's very memorable just from the one scene she's in, because obviously you think about this episode and being the introduction of Marlene, you're like, oh, she's in it, like all the way through. And actually, no, it's just one scene. So, and I love the way that they introduce her and Del's relationship in this episode as well. I think it's, and obviously they love it too, because they keep it the same way throughout the entire run of the series. So, except for one minor continuity issue, which I'll talk about during the episode breakdown. So yeah, that's, I think, the reason it's quite low for me. It is quite low. I mean, it's, 45 is quite low for a series 4 episode. What about the IMDb?
So yeah, the IMDb ranking is 27.
Oh wow, it's really high.
Yeah. So this one, it's about the same as mine. Yeah, it's like a mid to high one. I don't know, people like it. I mean, there's criticisms of it, which we'll go through with the episode breakdown. Yeah, so it's popular on IMDb. Yeah, I don't think there's much to really go over. Most people's reviews are fairly favorable. Some people say it's a weak episode. It seems to be hit and miss with whether people, because we're still in that awkward phase where obviously the scripts had to be changed to incorporate Albert. In a way, I feel like this episode's storyline suited Grandad maybe a little bit more than Albert.
Yes, I agree, actually. That's a good point. That might be why.
Yeah, maybe because it just feels a little bit off, like the Albert stuff.
But no, you're right. It does have some redeeming qualities. Obviously, it's not the worst episode. I'm just trying to explain why it's a bit lower on my rankings. But you've ranked it as 30, so it's still reasonably high.
I don't think, yeah. And I don't think there's anything wrong with the episodes in the 40s. Like most of the ones in my 40s I love, so yeah. I
mean, like I said, I think we can probably find something we like in almost every episode, with maybe the odd exception, but we'll get to that later. So, yeah, I think...
No, I would say there is something I like in every episode without fail, yes.
I think that's probably true for me, but we'll find out.
Okay, let's go ahead and start with the episode breakdown.
Okay, so we start the episode in the flat, and Albert is adjusting the aerial on the TV. I don't remember those days, but there must have been a time.
We still have one.
Do you? Oh,
yeah,
wow.
Because...
So yeah, I can't imagine what it must have been like to physically have to walk around the room to get a picture on your television.
I should clarify, we don't have one in the traditional sense, because we have only streaming channels. Yeah, so my husband bought one to be able to get the football channels over here more easily, and yeah, he has to move it around, and then as soon as he gets it in the perfect position, the cat will like knock it on the floor. So yeah.
I thought you were going to say Del will come along and throw it on the floor.
Yeah, just move it and put the phone down there. What's this? Yeah.
So yeah, that takes us back to the episode. Del is on the phone making a deal, and Rodney and Albert start an argument about why Rodney moved the aerial.
There was a ghost on the screen.
Of course there was a ghost on the screen. I was watching an horror film.
And as I just said, I don't remember the days of having to adjust, but that must have been so annoying if like the slightest knock and you just explained it is still annoying. So Albert finally gets the picture back, and Del finishes his phone call and throws the aerial out of the way and puts the phone down, which is hilarious. I love that moment. Very funny. And Buster Merrifield here is starting to perfect his hilarious facial expressions, reacting to Del and Rodney doing things that annoy him. He does this a lot, and it's kind of a signature of the character of Albert now, that he pulls these funny faces whenever they accuse him of something or they do something. So yeah, really funny from Buster Merrifield there, making his mark. And there's a stack of what looks like menu covers that Del puts the phone down onto.
Yeah, I wrote that. What is that stack? I have no idea.
I think they look like the covers for menus in restaurants.
They do.
Or like wine lists.
No, like when you get the bill.
They're the list.
Yeah, like little folder cover things. Yeah, they look like your what you get at school, your national achievements file or whatever. What's it called?
God, yeah. Oh god, national. Yeah, oh god, what was that called?
I don't know.
God, mine never had anything in it. But yes, I know what you mean. Those folders that you put things in. I had no achievements. So So yes, anyway, anyone who knows what those things are stacked up that Del puts the phone on, please let us know. And Del says,
I got a coup! I pulled off a genuine coup!
and I wonder if Del actually understands what a coup is. And then Del tells them that someone will be coming to stay with them.
A paying guest.
With the comment directed directly at Albert, understandably.
I never noticed that. You think that's directed at Albert?
Yeah, he does. He says it to Albert and he gets in his face and says, a paying guest, as he takes his chip or something off him and eats it.
I just thought he was saying that. I didn't realise he was kind of digging at Albert because he's not paying.
Oh yeah, I absolutely took that as a dig to Albert.
I've never thought that. That's weird.
Oh, okay. Just me then. So we find out that this paying guest is Boycie and Marlene's puppy. And now we get some backstory about Boycie and Marlene, which will become very important in later episodes.
For the last few years, Boycie and Marlene have been trying to start a family, right? But so far, as they say on the continent, nitto.
So Del says the dog was bought for Marlene to stop her feeling broody. And I definitely think as an animal lover, it's better to have an animal than a kid. Not that I could compare because I don't have kids, but I certainly would prefer to have a dog over a kid any day. So let us know in the comments how you feel about that. How do you feel about that, dude? You also have animals and no kids, so.
I have heard people say that they have gotten pets to stop themselves having more kids. Yeah, I mean, I don't see the two as equivalent in any way, but it's the human nature of having something to care for, and whether that is stronger in females because they do have certain hormones, that you get when you have a kid. I don't know. I mean, I don't have any kids and I do see my dog as a child. So yeah, I don't know. I put all of my energy into looking after my dog. So
yes,
I don't know what else I can really say other than yes, I suppose if there's any equivalent in my world, it's my dog. Yeah. And my cats, of course, but my cats look after themselves. The dog doesn't.
Oh yeah, mine don't. I've got two cats, and my two cats definitely need all the pampering and the attention a dog would need. They're very spoiled.
Yeah, I wrote that too about how this is the introduction to Boycie and Marlene's fertility issues, which is a long-running storyline. So it's interesting that the first episode Marlene is in, they begin it, and it's forevermore.
Yeah, forever. Yeah, good that they decided that early on, so there was no later continuity issues. So we find out that Boycie will pay Del £60 a week, and I'm just wondering, why would Boycie think that Del is the right person for this job? I mean, I suppose there's a chance he's doing it to just wind Del up because he doesn't know the dog is a Great Dane. But seriously, Del looking after something, that Marlene really cares about? Why on earth would you ask Del to do this?
Right. So in hindsight, if you think about this, first of all, why, Boycie knows Del. He knows that he always cuts corners, etc. Mm-hmm. And in a way, you could say Boycie's just cutting a corner here too. Boycie doesn't actually care about the well-being of the dog. Fair enough. But he would care about the fact that he spent £600, which I saw on the inflation calculator is the equivalent of almost £2,000 today. It's about 1,897 is what it came out as. And also £60 a week is about £186 a week now, which is hilarious because, my pet sitter here charges $200 a day to look after my dog.
I was going to say that's cheap for pet sitting anyway.
He's getting it cheap, and I don't know if he was getting it cheap for the time, but he might be just doing that because he's getting it cheap, and we know Boycie is a cheapskate. We know that. He's so tight, remember?
Yeah, he's tight, isn't he?
That's why he's so rich for being so tight. Yeah. That's the only explanation I can come up with because he knows. I mean, it wouldn't shock him at all that what happened to Juke under Del's care, but Marlene does care. And whether Marlene has a distorted view of Del's abilities here, I don't know. But for me personally, I wouldn't trust Del with my dog. I wouldn't trust Del with my sandwich.
I wouldn't trust Del with anything. I was going to say, I wouldn't trust Del with anything. He'd sell it or do something to it to make profit.
Yes.
He doesn't sell the dog on for an inflated price.
I mean, yes, we would trust Del with serious, important stuff in an emergency. But when it comes to little things where he can make money, no, he's not going to take this seriously. And he proves it straight away.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's a major plot hole, I think, in this episode. Rodney agrees with us. And Del says,
well, what are they going to say, eh? They're going to say, here, we saw Rodney taking your dog out every morning, every evening for a walk. Well, what's wrong with that? It's exactly what Boycie and Marlene want us to do, isn't it, eh?
What do you mean I saw Rodney take the dog for a walk every morning, every evening?
I love that line so much. That used to crack me up so much.
That reminds me a lot about the Rodney pumping up the tyres exchange in
It's
Happy
Rodney's
Returns.
reaction. Yeah, he's just sitting there at the table and he's like, yeah, I suppose.
And that's actually the end of the scene. So it ends with Rodney going into the kitchen after Del. And I always think it's interesting, because we get a couple of these in series 4, especially we get a few of these where Del is running away from Rodney because he feels some sort of physical threat from Rodney. I mean, it could just be play fighting. Del's definitely laughing while Rodney's angry and sort of going for him. But in what universe is Del afraid of Rodney physically?
Well, he's not, but I think, yeah, this is a thing that John Sullivan started to use as a way to fade scenes out, like them arguing and going off around a corner or into a door. So, yeah, I don't think he's afraid of him. I think it's just like brother kind of silly fighting, and it's just a way he ended the scenes.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, it's very common to have them bickering at the end of the scene. We saw it in Who's a Pretty Boy and in It's Only Rock and Roll. It's getting more common in the writing. That's all.
So any other notes on that scene, dude?
The only other note I had here was I wrote that it's funny they talk about computers replacing people.
Because how many people have been put on a doll by a robot what can build a car or whatever?
Because that's actually what's happening now in life, in the reality. So it's funny hearing them talk about this in the 80s. So yeah, the only other note I had was that Albert points out the biggest issue with pet care.
We'll have to swear the dog to secrecy, won't we?
It's such a big problem because there's no way for any animal to be able to tell their human what happened in the care of a random person or a pet care person. So yeah.
No, you're right. Unless they completely neglect the animal, and then of course it's clear that the animal's been completely neglected. But yeah, if it's just a case of they haven't fed them properly or something, or they haven't given them their treats or taken them for as many walks as they should, that's probably not going to show on the animal's face when they get back.
Yeah, and if anything, an animal is always so happy to see their owner, and the owner will always be like, oh, look how happy he is. He's been fine. But like, yeah.
True.
But it's obviously told as a joke here. But if you think about it, pet care is ideal for Del because, yeah, he knows that there will never be any comeuppance, at least he thinks, because Juke would be easy to look after. But I was going to say it would have been so nice to see Juke in the flat.
Yeah, that's true.
I'd love to see him like jumping over all of those things that they have. Like the big stack of menus would definitely have gotten knocked over. But...
Okay, so we go now to outside Boycie's house, as Jenny already mentioned. Boycie lives in a mansion on Kings Avenue, and we get to see his driveway, at least in this episode. So the trotter van pulls up, and Boycie has his head in the boot, and then as they arrive, he hits his head on the roof of the boot, which is very funny. So we meet Marlene for the first time here. She goes straight to Del when she comes out of the house, and we get the very first Del pinching Marlene's bum joke that will continue throughout the entire run of Only Fools and Horses. And we always cut to Boycie's face for his annoyed reaction when that happens as well. So that setup is exactly the same every single time, and it never gets old. It's always hilarious, which is great. I'm glad they got the reaction that they wanted right away, not like the Dave joke. It's good that this one was a hit at the very beginning, probably as well because of Marlene's reaction. It's very funny.
Yeah.
And a side note here, so we find out in Fatal Extraction that Del actually dated Marlene a long while ago when she worked in the betting shop down Lewisham Grove. So he remembers that she was going steady with another guy at the time, which was Boycie, presumably. And it's implied that meeting Del's mom and dad was what put her off him. But I think we can assume that they've slept together, right? Because he says that she was a very sporting girl in Fatal Extraction, in sort of implying that she was very physical. And then Boycie doesn't know about this, right? But I just, obviously here it's sort of played down that there's no past relationship with them.
It's not played down because it wasn't a thing, was it? Like, I know we're going to go way ahead now talking about this, but yeah, that whole thing in Fatal Extraction where they try to imply that Del and Marlene were a couple, it doesn't make sense if you look at the old episodes. So it's almost like a write-off, like maybe slightly lazy writing in Fatal Extraction, because it was easy to play it for a laugh in Fatal Extraction, but yeah, just like a lot of the other things, if you go back and actually analyze the past scenes and the fact, like even with Rock and Chips, you go all the way back, Boycie was a good friend of Del. There is no way that he wouldn't know that Boycie was the guy Marlene was with.
Yeah, I was going to say, because obviously it was a long time ago because Del's mom and dad were alive. He said that she met his mom and dad, but...
So he would have had to have been younger than 18, but it implies in Fatal Extraction that the other man that she was going with was Boycie, right?
Yeah.
So yeah,
It
it wouldn't happen because they were not best friends, but they were in a very close-knit circle. So yeah, I think we just have to put this whole thing down to Fatal Extraction did it for one laugh, but it wasn't worth it because it doesn't fit the past.
Yeah, it totally messes with the timeline of Marlene, Boycie, and Del. So
honestly, I was barely going to bring it up in continuity only because it's so, not going to say poorly done, but it was so wrong that it's just not even worth mentioning.
Yeah, well, I was also going to say the fact that he can't remember a name. I mean, if you were someone you didn't see much or you never saw again afterwards, fair enough forgetting a name, but you see Marlene all the time, so of course you'd remember her name.
It just doesn't really make sense. Yeah. So
So I just wanted to bring that up because this is the first time we're meeting her, and there's meant to be this history based on a later episode. So they're standing outside making small talk, and Marlene assumes that Del has pinched her bum again, even though Boycie is the one with his arm around her, which is really funny in this particular moment. And Marlene goes to get the dog, and Del looks at her bum as she's leaving and ends up face to face with Boycie.
I like your lipstick, Del.
I actually think Boycie is pretty chill about Del and Marlene's obvious flirting. I mean, I'd be a bit more pissed off if my boyfriend was doing this with another woman right in front of me and like he pinched her ass in front of me.
This is the way that Boycie always acts around Marlene in all the future, right? There's always guys talking to her and stuff. He's always got that kind of like stoic kind of, he's not reacting, but he is reacting kind of face, which I think is very well done by John Challis.
Yes.
Because it wouldn't have been as funny if he yelled at them all the time.
No, of course not. Yeah. And I just mean comparing it to like a real life situation, I think most people would be way more mad than this. So I think it's good that they don't do it that way. And we find out that Boycie and Marlene are
Off for a couple of weeks to the Seychelles.
again, just seeing the snobbery of Boycie and Marlene comparatively to the Trotters. And we get another dig from Rodney here about Del's dating history.
You are quite sure you will be able to look after this dog?
Of course I will.
Yeah, oh yeah. Del's had lots of experience.
And then we get the big reveal that Juke is.
The Great Dane.
And Marlene introduces them.
Duke, this is your Uncle Del and Rodney.
Their reaction to Duke's bark is absolutely hilarious. John Challis as well. They all jump at the same time. It's really funny.
Aww, oh, Dukey.
And obviously Duke is a big puppy with Marlene, but not so much with the men. And I think you found that right, dude, that your dog Dylan, he reacts differently to men and women, right?
Oh yeah, he doesn't like men as much, but yeah.
Yeah.
That's because he likes all the babying he gets from women, usually.
I mean, some men are like that too. But yes, I feel like that with my cats as well. They don't react as well to men as they have to women in the past.
I've yet to meet a man that's made like a big fuss over Dylan the way that most women do. I empathize a lot with Marlene in this scene because Marlene is basically me in this scene.
And
when I'm leaving for a trip.
Oh God, me too. I'm worse actually. So Marlene is explaining how to look after Duke, and she says,
And don't worry, he's house trained.
Hey, we live in a flat.
and Boycie hurries Marlene along.
Come on, kiss him goodbye.
Yeah, bye, Del. See you soon.
For God's sake, the dog, Marlene!
So again, we get that lovely interaction between Del and Marlene. And I love that smile that David Jason gives Boycie after Marlene kisses him. I think it's really cheeky. It's lovely. Marlene does some proper baby talk to Duke, which should only ever be done in private, I wrote.
No, I think it's fine.
I think people think you're crazy though, dude. You're right. Like, because when I've
I
had
don't
people
care.
come round to my house and they see me with my cats and, I forget they're there and I talk to them like I talk to them when it's just the two of us and everyone's like,
That's because you live in a country where animals are not usually treated that way. Yeah, where I live, it's pretty normal for people to make a massive deal.
I think people do treat animals that way if they have them. But yes, I mean, even if people do baby talk their animals here, they do it in Cantonese. So I wouldn't really understand. I'd actually love to hear some Cantonese baby talk. I don't know how that would sound. So Boycie and Marlene head off in the car, leaving Del and Rodney alone, looking bewildered over, just like completely shell-shocked. And they are both afraid to get in the van with Duke. So Del finds an excuse to not go into the van and he goes over to the food that Marlene has left in the bag. And Del sees that Duke has been left a lot of food that they are going to eat instead of feeding it to Duke, which Rodney protests.
And what if Marlene finds out?
And how is she going to find out? Suppose Dukey's going to grass us up, is he?
Which is actually the same joke that Albert kind of told earlier when he said, swear the dog to secrecy. So,
Yeah.
But yes, it's a fair point. And then we get some amazing physical comedy to end the scene. Del is sitting in the van. For some reason, Del's fear went away completely and he just got in the van, no problem. And Rodney goes to sit down, and then we hear Juke growling, and Rodney says,
That dog don't like that.
and then Del convinces Rodney to get in, only to leave his hand in a claw-like shape on the chair as Rodney's bum hits the seat. He also hits Del's hand, and Del grabs at his bum, terrifying Rodney. And I just thought, how did Rodney think Juke was getting onto that chair? What did you think that was? Juke's paw?
He's jumpy. It was natural, yeah.
Yeah, so yes, that's a very funny physical comedy moment, and I love David Jason's probably quite genuine laugh that he does in that moment after Nick Lyndhurst ran away.
And I love the fact that he still has lipstick on at the end of the scene when he's laughing, which is very funny.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, so a couple of notes for this scene because it is the first appearance of Marlene. The first note that I had was that the first, as the scene opens, the class contrast is very prominent because you've got the van next to Boycie's car, and then on that big driveway of that house, and then Del and Rodney get out, and Del's in his classic like coat and everything. So it's very obvious that there's a massive class difference between the two of them.
Yes.
So the script describes Marlene as a dapper little Cockney woman. Which I think is very cute.
Oh.
And Sue Holden has said that on her first day, Ray Butt asked her if she'd met any of the boys, and she said no, but she wasn't given the opportunity to meet any of them before she filmed. So she felt very tongue-tied because she thought they all looked like stars to her because she'd obviously watched the show, but she hadn't had a chance to meet them. She said she was almost immediately snogged by David Jason, and he pinched her on the bottom. And she thought to herself, there's no other situation in the world where this could happen. So I noticed also a weird thing in the Lovely Jubbly book, if anyone has it. In this episode, it mentions, on the page for this episode, it mentions the garden scene in the backyard at the Boyce house. But that's not in this episode, that's in From Prussia with Love. So that's a mistake in the Lovely Jubbly book.
Oh.
Though I actually have found 3 or 4 mistakes in the Lovely Jubbly book, but I don't want to pull it apart. There's several incorrect dates in that book, episode airing dates.
Oh, that's surprising.
They should have hired me as an editor. I would have found all these errors. Maybe they want to do another revised version of it.
Maybe you should just write an Only Fools and Horses book and release it.
The Lovely Jubbly book was written by Jim Sullivan and someone else who I can't remember the name of right now, and I'll quote later. But that's John Sullivan's son. So there's nobody better placed to write this book. But I'm just saying because everybody makes little errors like this when they're editing and stuff. There's some pretty big ones. So John Chalice said, Sue and I got on straight away and we've been friends ever since. She sailed through the scene and had clearly done her homework.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we know they got on really well for years. They got another show after it. So, yeah, and their chemistry on screen is absolutely perfect.
Yeah, agreed.
And the only other note I put, which I think I've already kind of said, but the Marlene's instructions about, like, tucking Juke in at night and stuff, are kind of like me with my long instructions when I go on holiday. And I'm like, this has to be done this way, this has to be done. But I don't think it's weird at all. I think, I don't know, this might show where there's difference in people who have pets and who don't have pets. You can't just leave this stuff to chance. Pets thrive on routine, so...
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. I wrote loads of instructions for my pet sitter, and he said thank you. He said it was really useful.
So that's how you know a good pet sitter, because if somebody comes and says, oh, you've given me too much information, they're not good. Because I was a pet sitter for years on the side, and the more information, the better. That's my opinion. Let's move on to the next scene.
Okay, so we go to the park. I guess it's a few days later. And I assume that because Del says...
Right, your turn today, Rodney.
It was my turn yesterday.
The script says the next day.
Well, maybe they did walk him in the afternoon.
They must have picked him up in the morning the day before.
Yeah, it was the morning, I think it was, yeah. So that's probably why. Del tells Rodney to...
Take him for a run.
And then proceeds to go off on his own. And why couldn't they stay together since they both went to the park?
It's true.
It seems a bit ridiculous.
I don't know why.
Because usually if you go somewhere with someone, you stay with them while you're at the place that you are together. And it seems like an activity that both of them would enjoy. So, yeah, weird that Del just walks off on his own. So Rodney goes to get Juke out of the boot of the car and realises that he's sound asleep. But one of the things that I find really funny is that he's still scared to even open the door. And I said, I can't imagine trying to look after an animal that you're scared of. Did this ever happen to you when you were pet sitting, dude?
Okay, I wasn't always afraid of the animal. I was afraid of one of the animals, but I was afraid of losing them. So, because I had some very hyper dogs that would get out of their harnesses. So, yes. They're implying that Juke, growled at him in the other scene. But if we go forward to Prussia with Love and they're play fighting, it's basically just because Juke is a big dog, it's easy to play that joke. But he's not actually an aggressive dog just because he's big. Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of people think that just because the dog is big. In my experience, it's the smaller dogs are always the most aggressive ones.
Right, yeah, exactly. I mean, my biggest dog bite that I got was from a little French bulldog there, yeah.
Yeah. So Nick Lyndhurst does some pretty great physical comedy here where he throws the balls to try and entice Juke out of the car.
Ready?
And Rodney soon realises that something is wrong with
Juke.
So then we switch to Del walking past I put a posh tart.
Another posh tart.
Another posh tart. Walking her sausage dog.
He's nice. Have you had him long? Or has he always been that length?
The lamest jokes ever are the funniest.
I
don't know.
they are so... Because they're so lame, that's why they're so funny.
I'll just point out, since you mentioned that joke, that it's written differently in the script. It's written...
What's it written as?
How long have you had him? So I think it's better the way David Jason delivers it.
Yeah.
So because I think he's great at little gags like this, and yes, it's kind of a lame joke, but it's just so funny.
Yeah, it's really funny, and it's how nice and casually he says it as well.
Yeah.
It's just brilliant, the delivery. So Del starts bullshitting immediately that he has won dog shows and been in adverts for dog food.
No, there's nothing I don't know about dogs.
And the lady falls for it and asks,
Well, Sasha, she's always tearing little holes in my carpet. What would you recommend?
A new carpet.
So I just love how Del is always on the lookout for opportunities to make money. It doesn't matter where he is, what he's doing. You can always find a way to try and sell someone something. And I think that's great. So obviously he's trying to sell her a carpet in this situation. And then suddenly Rodney comes running over.
I don't want to worry you, but I think the dog's dead.
So Rodney runs back up the hill, followed by Del, doing his hilarious run. So I don't know if this is David Jason's real run, but the way that he looks when he does it in his big Del coat, there's something, I guess it's because he like lifts his arms up and kind of like lifts his knees up a little bit when he runs. It's just really funny.
Both of them are really good at runs. Like Rodney's run down the hill is absolutely hilarious as well.
Yeah, that's true. So they realise that Juke is alive and they decide to take him to the vets. So there's a funny line at the end of this scene where Rodney says,
Oi, Del, shall I get his balls?
You leave him alone. I don't want him waking up in a temper.
So obviously, in hindsight, that doesn't make any sense because, of course, his balls are with him in the car. Referring to his testicles. But yes, I just think it's funny that Del always misunderstands things. And actually, this is a recurring theme in this episode, people misunderstanding things, and that becomes the joke. So that's the first one, and I'll mention the other ones later. So any notes on that scene?
No, not really. I just read that the woman in the park was played by Linda Barr, but I didn't write any other acting credits down because she doesn't have many.
Well, being in one episode of Only Fools and Horses would certainly be a claim to fame.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we go to the vets. And this is a location we've never seen before and we never see again. Actually, like the park in the previous scenes. We've got quite a few new locations in this episode, actually.
Oh, yeah.
One-time only locations. So we start with a great line.
All these years, Marlene's tried to have a baby and failed. And when you tell her Jukey Wookie's about to croak it, she'll have twins.
Del kindly lets Rodney know.
Anyway, all I want you to know is I'm not blaming you.
And Del thinks that Rodney might have caught Juke's head in the door when he tried to shut it. And Rodney rightly points out,
Del, if you catch a Great Dane's head in a door, you know you've got a Great Dane's head in a door.
Rodney then blames Uncle Albert because...
Didn't do nothing, he's just a jinx.
And this is something that Rodney says in Hole in One as well. I think I mentioned when we did that episode about this being sort of a recurring theme that Rodney mentions a few times, that Albert is bad luck, basically. And the irony is that in some ways, this is Uncle Albert's fault in this episode because it's his pills that get mixed up with Juke's.
How is that his fault, though?
No, I mean, if he wasn't there, those pills wouldn't have been there, would they?
So but that doesn't mean it's
his fault. Way.
He's a factor in the mix-up.
Yeah,
but,
he's a factor. But I mean, if Albert...
It's not his fault.
But if you take Rodney out, nothing really changes except that maybe someone would have taken the correct pills. You take Del out, it doesn't matter. But the pills wouldn't have even been there if it hadn't been for Albert being there. So... it's Albert's fault.
That doesn't make it his fault, though. Just because somebody takes your... I know. You're going to have the same issue with Grandad. I'm never going to let you blame Albert for anything.
I know.
Yeah. It's not Albert's fault.
So sorry.
Poor Albert. He was at home just hanging out, taking his sleeping pills. You know?
No, he wasn't taking his sleeping pills.
Yeah. The only question is, and we'll come to this later, I guess, but why were his sleeping pills not in his bedroom?
Yeah, and why were they right next to Juke's pills as well? And why did the bottles look exactly the same for those two medications?
Well, that makes sense because there are a lot of similar-looking pharmacy vials out there.
Yeah, but for animals, I get my animals' drugs in completely different containers than human medicine.
No, it depends what pharmacy you get them from. This is the most boring conversation in the world. But yeah, those pharmacy vials look the same. They don't have special pet ones because it's not like pets have to open the bottle. It's the same as human bottle. They're the same. They're basically just safety bottles. Now, if a vet is smart, they might invest in some with little paw print lids or something, but they don't always.
Anyway, Del dismisses his idea that Albert is to blame. And then I want to say the receptionist, although she's wearing a white coat.
She is apparently the receptionist in the script, yes.
Okay, why is she wearing a white coat if she's the receptionist?
Well, I remember the receptionist at the dental office used to wear white coats because it scared me as a kid.
I don't remember that.
Mm-hmm.
We know that the grandma in Fatal Extraction isn't wearing one, but anyway.
She's not, but that'll depend again on the surgery. It's so boring. I really, really remember when I was a kid being terrified of the woman behind the desk at the dentist because she was wearing a white coat and she was just the receptionist.
I thought you'd be terrified just because you were at the dentist,
that
which was
too.
always a horrible experience.
Yes, yeah. It's both.
All right, well, this receptionist is not horrible. So the receptionist comes out and says that they're doing some tests on Juke. And Rodney asks how he is, and she replies,
He's holding his own.
Yeah, Rodney is up to his old tricks already.
So there we have our second misunderstanding joke where Del thinks that she means something different. And she corrects him and says that he's still poorly. So Del and Rodney sit back down, and immediately Del and Rodney become gooey-eyed over the woman. They couldn't have made it more obvious if they'd have started masturbating in the surgery. So here they bring up the fact that they have been eating Juke's food. And Del is dismissive about how wrong that is. And Del asks if they can talk about something more
aesthetical,
which he clearly doesn't understand the meaning of. It's quite an interesting choice of word for him to come up with that. I guess it's because it goes into the next joke, which makes sense. It's interesting, though, because Del actually does end up mentioning something aesthetical when he looks at the receptionist and says,
couldn't half give that one, couldn't you, Rodney?
And I just said, wouldn't she have heard all of this conversation? She's literally a couple of feet away, and there's no music, and there's no one else in the room.
She's so absorbed with the fish. Yeah, it's just like that whole Nag's Head thing we said the other day. Because it's all filmed on a set, they do a lot of like very close jokes where obviously the person would hear what they're saying or see them looking from right next to them, but they have to do it that way because of the set.
Yeah, I mean, that woman would definitely have seen how those two were looking at her. It's the most obvious. I mean, they're always obvious, So the vet comes out after that and tells them that Juke's heartbeat is normal.
Is that good?
Well, of course.
I just love the fact that Del even needs that explaining to him, that a normal heartbeat is good. They've clearly given Juke all the tests going, but they still don't know what is wrong with him. And they aren't kidding that all those blood tests and an X-ray would cost an arm and a leg. I mean, anyone who has a pet knows how ridiculous vet bills can be. I dread to think how much this would have cost them. They don't mention it, even though they talk about the bill. But yeah, it would have been ridiculous how much they would have had to pay for those blood tests and X-rays and everything else. But of course, you'll always pay them because what is the alternative? There isn't one. The alternative's too horrible to think about, so we always pay them. That's how they get you. The vet asks what they've been feeding Juke, and Del lies that they've been feeding him all the food that Marlene left them, ending with,
he had roast pork for breakfast.
The vet asks if it was freshly cooked, and we find out that Juke may have
salmonella poisoning
because Del and Rodney only
warmed it up a bit.
Del and Rodney worry that Albert might have thrown away the leftovers, and they ring Albert and find out
he's eaten it.
The vet tells them to take Albert to hospital, and Del bets Rodney a $5 that Albert will have to have an operation.
No, listen, I know you don't want to have an operation. Nobody wants to have an operation, but everyone at some time in their lives has to have one. And today it's your turn.
So Del bets Rodney £1 that Albert will laugh that he might have salmonella poisoning.
I thought it was a $5.
No, it's a $5 for the operation and £1 for the fact that Albert will find it funny. £1. That's a carry-on reference for anyone that doesn't know. Here, I've got to say, I can really picture Albert's reaction on the phone. Even though we don't see it, we don't hear it, I really picture it. It makes me think of, yeah, that's gravy. Or, call someone, there's a baby on its way. Like, all this stuff pops into my head when I think about how Albert reacts to that news. So, obviously, that's just merit to Buster Merrifield for creating such a memorable character with such memorable reactions. And the scene ends with a great line.
Rodney, you should have warned me about this.
Warn you about it? I didn't know myself.
Well, you're the one with GCEs, ain't you?
Yeah, I've got a GCE in maths and art. I ain't got a GCE in pool.
So any notes on that scene, dude?
I've got a couple of notes. So the receptionist was played by Debbie Blythe, who was also in John Sullivan's other series, Good Friends, and she was in Emmerdale. So she would have been familiar to anybody who watched those shows. The vet, of course, we mentioned this back in Ashes to Ashes. This is John D. Collins again. Who
What are you doing?
Played the river policeman on the Thames when they're trying to perform a burial at sea in Ashes to Ashes. Yes, his famous line, "What are you doing?" So who would have thought you could be a vet and a river policeman? Those are two very time-consuming careers. I also really love Rodney's line where the vet says,
This leg of pork, have you still got it?
Oh, not on us.
and then another line we always quote.
How long have you had the dog?
Oh, 1 day.
1 day?
Yeah. Oh, no, see, it ain't our dog, it's a friend's. We're just looking after him.
Yeah, that is funny. Imagine if you were a vet hearing that, you would just be like, wow, we need to get the RSPCA in here to take our dog away.
It's the way Rodney looks at the form as he's writing.
Yeah.
He's like, okay, 1 day.
Yeah. Do you know who he reminds me of in the tone of voice that he says that in is Bertrand Muffet from Carry On Loving.
Right, yeah.
A muffin.
Yeah, so many Carry On references. And then the final note I had here is the betting over Albert's health. The betting shows us that they don't seem too worried. And because we know that this was written for Grandad, it doesn't really make sense. Maybe they changed that because if Grandad had almost had salmonella poisoning, maybe they'd be more worried. I know this is all played for laughs. It could be very serious and they're betting and laughing about it with Albert, but I wonder,
Yeah, you're right. The vet does seem more worried than they do when he does oh no.
Yeah.
Like,
well, it
runs
could
into
kill.
the room. He's
It
more
could kill
dramatic.
both of them. Yeah, it could kill.
But Rodney and Del don't really seem to understand the severity of the situation because they didn't even know that they could get salmonella poisoning from the food that they cooked. So I don't know. Maybe they don't really understand what it is. That might explain a little bit of the lack of.
This was my
reaction.
final note, and that is that somebody on IMDb said that there was a continuity issue because in Big Brother, Del says salmonella. Can you remember the line? He says something like, Grandad's been cooking up some salmonella of some kind.
Oh,
It's in Big Brother.
salmonella and chips or something like that. Yeah.
Also, Rodney says it in Long Legs of the Law. He says at Sid's Cafe, salmonella on toast. So both of them know what
I
salmonella
thought it was bacteria on toast.
Oh, you're right. Okay, skip that. So it's only when Del says that in Big Brother. So Del says not only does he say salmonella, meaning that he knows it's a bad thing, but he pronounces it correctly. So somebody pointed that out as a continuity issue. It's nothing, but it's just a note.
No, it's fair. I mean, I'm nitpicking and bringing things up. Why shouldn't everybody else?
But we pointed out last week that Del continues to say Statolite incorrectly all the way back in an earlier episode, which continues through. So sometimes they do get it right. It's no big deal. But yeah, in this case, he did say salmonella correctly in Big Brother. So he suddenly can't and calls it salmonella. But yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
And they don't know that it's a problem. Although I think that they know it's a problem because when Vet says salmonella, they both react badly. So they know it's serious.
They do, but I wonder if that is partly because they're both like, oh, that sounds serious. What is that? Rather than like, oh my God, I know exactly what that is and what that can do. You know?
Yes, that's it. Yeah.
Well, now we go to the flat later that night, presumably. And Del is just finding out how Albert is on the phone and he's flirting with the nurse on the phone and he throws the aerial out of the way and he puts the phone down. I love that little call back to the earlier joke. So like, Albert probably spent ages putting that back again and then jump straight out of the way. Although technically, shouldn't you be able to put the aerial back exactly where you put it before and it'll have the same picture?
Oh, it doesn't work like that.
It doesn't work like that, yeah. So I don't know. So we find out that Albert has
pipes and gadgets and everything stuck in it, you know.
And Rodney and Del make the best of a bad situation as they sit down to eat Albert's grapes.
Aww.
And I put here, what are they spitting the pips into? Because to me, that looks like a church collection box.
Yeah, that's what it looks like. Mm-hmm.
Is that what it is?
Yeah. It looks
so where did they get that?
I mean, they've got all sorts of shit, haven't they? Yeah.
We find out Juke is still comatose and that Albert didn't have to have an operation. So just as Del is trying to wheedle out of paying for the bet that he lost, the phone rings. And Rodney gets it, and it's
Boycie! Boycie!
So this sequence is really funny, as Rodney tries to pretend that Juke is there with them. And I find it really funny that Rodney does all the actions when he says,
"Get down, Juke!"
even though Marlene can't see him.
I know
sometimes it's natural when you're like saying something and pretending to do actions that go with it, but I just thought that was really funny. He goes to all that effort. But the best part by far, of course, is when Rodney forces Del to pretend to be Juke on the phone, which ends up with Del coughing loudly. So Rodney hangs up quickly and Del throws books at Rodney as he runs into the kitchen, knocking over stacks of menu covers. This is very similar to the thing that ended the first scene, where we had Rodney going after Del into the kitchen, and this time it's Del going after Rodney. So
that's a callback to what you said before. That's a good way for them to end scenes. Again, we've mentioned this many times, but John Sullivan didn't like the 30-minute time restriction. One of his strengths in the beginning was not the wrapping up of the episodes that we talked about before, but yeah, this tactic to end a scene is a good way to end a scene because it keeps the action high. I have to mention the line,
They said Juke was comatose.
Comatose. Well, funny enough, I thought that when I saw him laid Spark out on the back of the van.
Well, you'd be right, Rodney, wouldn't you? Because I bet with this comatose, most probably, sleep is the best thing for him.
just a note, obviously, that completely destroys the scene, but why didn't Rodney just say, yeah, Del's out walking Duke?
Yeah, that's so true.
It's such a classic thing in every pet goes missing or a pet gets ill episode of a sitcom. They always do the pet on the phone or the kid on the phone thing, don't they? Yeah.
So we go to the hospital for the final scene, and Del is doing a very dog-like action here, jumping over the top of the frosted glass to see in. And I guess that was intentional.
I wrote that was
to be like a dog.
I don't know. I wrote that's a height difference gag.
I definitely saw it that way, but I think because of the dog context of the episode, I saw that as him sort of pretending to be a dog and jumping over the top as dogs do to see things.
Yeah,
it's both. Yeah, that's true. So Rodney very obviously pervs on the nurse in her uniform as she walks past, and Del has a go at him.
You want to watch it, Rodney, you're going to end up marrying an Arcala.
And that's a brownie troop leader, right?
Yeah, or girl guides. Yeah, we should definitely mention that because I noticed on Reddit that was one of the jokes that somebody didn't understand. They're like, what's an Arcala? I think it's girl guides and brownies. I'm not sure if it's both, but yeah. I was a brownie and our older sister was a girl guide, but Heather, you weren't in.
I was a rainbow.
Oh, right. I forgot there was one underneath. Yeah, rainbows for little kids.
So yes, anyone, please share if you were involved, or maybe you were an Arcala. Maybe you are an Arcala. Please comment if you are. So they ask the doctor if they can pick up Albert, and we find out that Duke has made a full recovery. So they go into the ward, and Albert looks terrified.
You ain't doing nothing else to me, are you?
Albert complains and describes all that he has been through, ending with,
What do you think they give me for lunch today? Roast bleeding pork.
So when he asks what's wrong with him, Dr. Del
checks
the chart and says
nothing.
I really love that way that he's looking at the chart. And
I love it that they just have Del with the chart telling him what's going on. Yeah, like Del understands the chart. Doctor's charts are super complicated and they usually use a lot of shorthands. They wouldn't just say, he's fine. So, yeah, it's quite funny. But I guess the doctor pretty much told them that. So, yeah, it makes sense. So Albert always sounds disappointed, and then he goes into what I think is the first of many pity ditties about him being old and forgotten. So this kind of becomes, Albert's thing, and he says,
Fight for your country and risk your life in sea and flame, and you get old and everyone forgets you.
Del and Rodney mimic playing the violin during the speech, which is quite funny. But actually, Albert is one of the lucky ones, I think, because there are actually many people who are genuinely forgotten in old age and have no one to care for them. At least Albert does have Del and Rodney, which is, ends up being a very good thing when they get rich. So Rodney says,
We bought you some grapes.
Yeah? Where are they?
We ate them.
And he mentions here that his pills wouldn't work, which we'll find out in a moment are his sleeping pills. That becomes important very shortly. And Rodney loses his patience with Albert's moaning.
I did miss you last night.
Did you?
Yeah. We had no one to spit the pips at.
So I love that their sympathy always only goes so far. This is something that happened at the end of Hole in One as well, where we had this genuinely sympathetic, touching moment, and then it always turns, within a couple of seconds, they always turn again. So, yeah, I think that's quite a nice thing that we're establishing still with Buster Merrifield's character. And the doctor comes back over and Albert says,
I feel full of fitness and vitality.
Which again is a hint at what's to come. And they are getting ready to leave when the doctor approaches holding a bottle of pills.
Oh, by the way, Sister gave me these.
Why, what's the matter with you?
And again, this is another misunderstanding joke. So this is at least the third or fourth one. We had the hold his own. Oh, there was one I didn't mention actually in the vet's office when he says,
How long will it take, Doc?
Oh, it shouldn't take long. Not if I send it first class.
Talking about the bill, but it's actually not the bill. It's, talking about Juke getting better. So, yeah, there's a few of these in this episode. It feels quite heavy on the misunderstanding jokes, but they're all funny, so it's fine. And then we find out that the pills are actually Albert's, but they are not Albert's. They are Juke's vitamin tablets. So this is where we get the punchline of the episode. So all the trouble's been caused by a mix-up between the two pill bottles. And we find out that Juke and Albert have taken each other's pills by accident because Rodney picked up Albert's sleeping pills for Juke.
Albert's been on the Bob Martins.
So I don't understand that, but I feel like you told me.
Bob Martins are dog vitamins.
Right. So I said the reveal is great about that, but actually the jokes make it funnier. All these jokes after the reveal, I think this is so far the strongest jokes after the punchline episode, comparatively to the other ones that have like a punchline at the end. So we've got a few here I want to mention.
Wait. Come on then, Uncle. We're going to get you home, and then Rodney's going to take Juke out for a run, you see.
Actually, you can come as well if you like.
And we also have, of course, the most famous one at the end with...
Well, come on. Yeah.
Come on, boy, come on.
Which, again, I think is a great way to end the episode. I think it's quite a high to end the episode on, which, again, is, they're getting better as we go along. So John Sullivan's learning.
In this case, I don't actually agree. I don't love the end of this episode. I think that...
Oh, okay.
So, and I've read people online disliked it too. But I think it's probably a 50-50 thing. I don't dislike the delivery and the performance. I think it's still funny. I just don't think it's the best ending. I almost think them realising the pill mix-up is more of a punchline ending. But there's a lot of times when we've talked about this, how there's like one reveal or one line and then there's another little bit after it. And sometimes it helps it, sometimes it doesn't. In this case, I don't love it, but it's still good. I just don't think it's necessarily one of the strongest endings. That's all.
Isn't that interesting though, that because you rank this as 30 and I ranked it as 45 and I think the ending is better than you think it is, which is interesting. Yeah. I just think, the dog, Albert comparing Albert to a dog jokes, I think they kind of write themselves. And I didn't mention all of them, but there's about sort of 5 in a row here. And I think they're all funny. And yeah, again, I think Del and Rodney's interaction with each other and, the way that they're laughing and Albert doesn't know what they're laughing at, all of that adds to it for me. But yeah, fair enough if it's not what you think, if you don't think it's that good.
This is the reason it's interesting to do the rankings, is because they're different. We don't want everybody to have the same opinion of the episode. So.
But it's weird that it doesn't reflect in our rankings, is what I mean.
Well, yeah, but it's not all about one part of the episode, is it? It's like you don't like the ending of Healthy Competition, but it's your number 5. So it doesn't mean anything. Yeah, I'm just saying I don't think it's the strongest ending.
Yeah, so any other notes on that scene, dude?
So yeah, I know you mentioned it, but I put this is the first time we've heard about Rodney's fetish in a while. It's been gone away, but it's back. And we know it continues all the way through to the end, so it's, got to keep it alive. The doctor in the hospital is played by Brian Jameson, who is more of a writer than an actor, but he was also in Just Good Friends, John Sullivan's other show. You must have not noticed this because you didn't put it in your breakdown, and honestly, I've never noticed it until now. But go back and watch it. The line where Rodney says,
Juke's back on his feet,
is really weirdly edited.
I did notice that, actually. Yes. It's because when you cut back to him, he isn't smiling. So it's just like they did that as a one-take thing. They missed out the line and then edited it back in. Yes, I agree. Sorry,
something must have gone wrong in the live performance because it's cut as a close-up shot on Rodney's face that doesn't match the action. And it's got different sound. Everything's weird about it. And David Jason's position moves really quite dramatically between shots. So yeah, go back and watch it. Never noticed it before, but now it's really prominent and I can't unsee it. And then, the last thing I wrote is, I know it's all in good humor, but mixing up your medication can be deadly. So consider this your PSA. I worked in a human pharmacy and we dispense a lot of medication for dogs. In many cases, there is no difference between the human and animal formulation. If a drug's been around for a long time and it's cheap, they will dispense the human form for animals. It's only if it's a different formulation or strength that there is a different one. So it's possible that there's nothing wrong with it because Juke's a big dog, he survived.
Yeah.
But yeah, if it had been a little dog, probably not. I know it's a joke, and I'm not saying it's not a joke, but it's so serious. It's like the 3rd leading cause of death in the US, not just pills, but medical mistakes.
No, that doesn't surprise me.
So yeah, you have to be really careful with your medications. This is just a A little public service announcement for you.
The more you know.
Also, I, for some reason, mixed up all my notes here and didn't put this in earlier, but the heath, like the park, scenes were filmed on Horsenden Hill in Ealing.
Oh, okay.
And that ended up at the end of the episode. But yeah, that's all I had.
So if that's everything, let's move on to our awards segment.
And guess what? He's only one.
Okay, so as always, we have 3 awards to announce this week, and we will start with Plonker of the Week.
You little plonker.
For Plonker of the Week, we will each nominate a plonker, and then we will discuss and decide who wins. So, Heather, who is your nomination for Plonker of the Week?
My nomination for Plonker of the Week is Rodney.
Okay.
Because he mixed up the pill bottles. He didn't check, and he should have done.
I nominated Del because of the whole scheme is stupid. Like, looking after...
You could say that for almost every single episode.
But then I'm probably biased because I care about the dog. He shouldn't be offering to look after somebody's dog if he's going to eat their food and offload the walking onto Rodney and not give a shit. He also didn't even ask what breed the dog was.
No.
Yeah.
Well, he said it was a puppy. I mean, but yeah, you're right. I mean, even a Great Dane puppy would have been smaller. I would have. A Great Dane puppy would have been bigger than a regular sized dog.
It's also Del's fault that it could have been salmonella because he didn't. He's the one who insisted they ate all of Juke's food and give poor Juke just a can of food. You can't just change a dog's food either. Like, that's another plonker thing. You shouldn't... You have to gradually change a dog's food. You can't just give them different food one night.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So I'm sticking with mine for Del. I think Del's worse.
Okay, we'll give it to Del.
Okay.
You clearly feel stronger about this than I do.
I do. I feel very strongly about this. Okay, so Del is Plonker of the Week.
Just can't get staff these days.
So this week, Heather will award the best line of the episode, and I'm going to do best moment. But so, dude, what have you nominated for best line of the episode? Sorry, what have you chosen for best line?
Well, actually, I should probably talk about it because I've got 4 to choose from.
4?
So the first one is, shall I get his balls? You leave him alone. That's a very funny one. And have you had him long, or has he always been this length? I mean, that is just one of my personal favourites. And, of course, I've got a GC in Massenat. I ain't got a GC in Port. Like, that's a very funny line that I'm sure most people will know from the episode. And finally, mainly just for the delivery, I thought, come on, boy, come on. David Jason's delivery at the end. So, yeah, I mean, I know I shouldn't give it to this because that's not the line that most people will laugh at, but I kind of want to give it to, have you had him long? Has he always been that length?
I think most people think that's such a lame joke, but you can give it to whatever you want. You can give it to whatever line you want. Everybody has their own favourite. It is really silly, but it's so funny.
Okay, fine. All right. Since you agree, I will give it to that. So the best line is, have you had him long, or has he always been that long?
I'm sure that the fans like the GCE line the best, and that's fine.
Yes.
And if
so we don't want to be too predictable.
If you but please put your favourite lines below. And
yes.
Everybody's favourite line is completely valid. So yeah, I'm going to be choosing best moment, and what I've chosen is the introduction of Marlene as a whole.
Yes, I thought you might.
Yeah, because it's very significant, and I know we've said that we shouldn't have introductions of new characters as the best moment, but in this case, it is just really funny, the whole scene of with Marlene. Like,
no, I agree. She does very well. I mean, I put 2 honourable mentions down for the best moment. One of them was Del grabbing Rodney's bum in the car.
Yeah.
I think it's a very memorable moment, and I know they always put that in clip shows of Only Fools and Horses because I think I saw that moment before I ever saw this episode in a clip show. And the other best moment, again, because I think it's so funny, is Del pretending to be the dog on the phone and it turning into a cough. That's very funny as well.
It's true, yeah. I mean, those are like more comedy slapstick moments. Yeah, there's also the running across the heath is very funny with Rodney running down the hill. That is very good.
I actually just realised, sorry, the 2 that I just mentioned are Del pretending to be a dog in both situations. But yeah, no, I agree with you. Marlene definitely being introduced is a very important, memorable moment of Only Fools and Horses. So, and she does nail that scene. She does a fantastic job.
Yeah, and she's the same all the way through from how she is in this scene right till the end. The only thing that she's a little bit different later is she gets less patient with Boycie in the future. She's a lot more like just eye roll, like shut up Boycie later. She's more serious. Yeah. But at least for the first half of her time on the show, she's very just very happy and light.
Yeah, happy-go-lucky.
We should mention that actually because this is not only is Marlene coming into this episode, but she's the first long-standing female character to be introduced.
That's true.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure Corin would have been, but yeah, she's the first long-standing female. So if we go all the way to the very end, who's left? Raquel, Cassandra, and Marlene. So yeah, and at first it doesn't seem like Marlene is necessarily gonna be like a ball buster of any kind, even though she is a little bit of a ball buster later. But she definitely has the power over Boycie, doesn't she? Which we'll address more in From Prussia with Love. So, but let's not forget that in the world of the scripts, From Prussia with Love actually preceded this episode. It got moved from this series into series 5. So this may not have been the first appearance of Marlene had that not happened.
Maybe that's why they mentioned about the baby thing in this episode then at the beginning.
Yeah, I'm obviously I have this note in my From Prussia with Love notes that it was meant to be in series 4. I don't know if it was meant to be the series opener for series 4 because I think Hole in One was supposed to be that series opener. Yeah. So it's a strong chance that From Prussia with Love was supposed to be after this episode, but it opens series 5 as we know. So alrighty, well then if there's nothing else, then drink up, we're leaving.
Okay, so that about wraps it up for this week. Join us next week when we'll be discussing series 5, episode 6, Watching the Girls Go By. Until then, Au revoir, listeners. If you like what you hear and want to contact us, you can email us at longlivehookeystreetpodcast@gmail.com. All one word, no spaces. Bonjour.